Please welcome Tim Costello.
Thank you for that introduction. It's pretty much as I wrote it, really. I feel like we just need to really unpack what Madhu said. That was a wonderful presentation, and the extraordinary both courage, organisation, political engagement to try and change laws and include people who have locked out, I think gives all of us a real picture into what urbanisation and politics is about. The word politics comes from the Greek word polis, and the city-states, the Greek word polis literally meant city. We get politics from it. The city-states of ancient Greece were where they forged a politics that was called democracy, with cosmopolitan groups of different religions and ethnicities and, if you like, castes and rich and poor, all in a melting pot. The importance of working out compromise, how you live together, how you somehow function under a rule of law that recognises the rights of others, which is right at the heart of Madhu's presentation, was eventually teased out in the idea of democracy. Democracy being, of course, two Greek words: kratos, rule, demos, people, the rule of people. And that notion was really a notion driven by city-states, by cosmopolitan groups, by people coming together and living together and realising they had to find compromises to coexist. The development of cities historically, of course, is really the story of civilization. With cities developing, specialisation was possible because food supplies might be happening in the rural areas, allowing the urban dwellers to engage in writing and literature and art and architecture and a whole range of other things. So when we talk about urbanisation, we're not just talking about a phenomenon that now is quite extraordinary, more than half the world's population living in urban cities. That's cities over 100,000 people. A huge shift that's happened in the last 110 years, even in Australia, although we were one of the most urbanised countries and right from our beginning. But urbanisation is really right at the heart, at the cradle of politics, of culture, of civilisation, of the notions of rule of law. I have to say, Madhu, in my experience in Delhi, I often struck this question of corruption. I was driving with a friend of mine from World Vision. He was picked up for speeding. In fact, the policeman said, "You're over-speeding," which was interesting English. He said to him, "That'll be 1,000 rupees." My friend Eddie said, 100 rupees. The policeman said 900. He said 120. He said 800. He said 130. They settled on about 180 rupees. And Eddie handed over the money and accepted the fine, and the policeman said, "And you should be very, very glad it's only Tuesdays, because your tyres are also bald, but on Tuesdays we don't do bald tyres." Well, I said to Eddie later, "How did you actually work this out about bargaining?" And he said, "Well, I looked at the, I guess, badge on his little cap. I worked out how senior and junior he was. I worked out how much he was being paid and therefore how much bakshish he could charge. And therefore I made a calculation." I said, "Oh, I get it. There's a science to this. Like back home we go when you tip a waiter about 10%. And part of my insight around this, of course, police and others unpaid, probably enough to live on. And there is institutionalised corruption that we've been hearing about. Part of my insight was, I remember being in New York, forgetting to tip a taxi driver because, being Australian, I just forgot. He stood there abusing me. "Sir, in this country we tip, you know," he said. And I ran back and gave him a tip. And then I thought, actually all we've done in American society, less so Australian, is institutionalise the corruption. We don't pay in America enough for waiters to live on. They have to actually be paid tips because $6 an hour is not enough to pay. probably is the same for taxi drivers. We've just found a formalised way of naming that wages are too low and we will tip people. Well, I think that's important to think these things through in terms of the great challenge that urbanisation poses to us. Cities get a bad rap in the Bible. The first city is Babel, the Tower of Babel. And it's an arrogant attempt to build a tower that reaches right up into the heavens. And the punishment is God visits upon the people confusion where they actually can't understand each other and they start speaking many languages. This is the ethnicity, the linguistic diversity, and the confusion that cities perhaps present. Of course, in the New Testament, it's in a city that Jesus is crucified, or just outside the gate. Cities have this bad rap. By the time you get to the end of the Bible, there's a New Jerusalem, and there is peace, where people of all languages and tribes actually gather together. The vision, if you like, in the Bible that starts in a garden actually ends in a city where there is harmony and rule, and the possibility that people of different languages and backgrounds actually coexist.